So we're doing a few practice problems. This is the one we started with. And if I were at home right here, I would take a minute and try to solve this one. Pause the video. Okay, so here's how you solve it. First off, I'm going to notice that this is a base 10. And when there's a base missing, it'll become all about the base. See, those two are the same. And so then if I can get that 3 to move up here, then this whole thing simplifies down to 2 to the third. So 4 log base 8 of 2 to the third. Well, what is 2 to the third? It's 8. So then this is really just log base 8 of 8. If you can get the bases the same. See how oftentimes it's about getting the bases to be the same. And then that's equal to 1. And then it's 4 times 1 is 4. Raise your hand if you knew the answer was going to come out to 4. Okay, good. Then let's take a moment and just talk about what you should have done up to this point in reviewing for this test. We've had a very disjointed lead up to this test. I really wish we would have just taken it before break, but we didn't know all of this was going to happen. So, but now, here are your things that you need to have done by tomorrow. Do you remember the worksheet that I gave you? Everybody please take that out. That is one of the 3 things that you need to do by tomorrow. Number 1 is the worksheet. Now, normally, you know, I give you the answers to worksheets like that, and I now have. If you look in Schoology, it's the very top file. There is so many files in there, I wanted to keep it simple. I've moved it to the very top. So one of the things I would do is correct it, not from the eye of like, how many wrong did I get, but from the eye of, you have to be able to do all of those questions on the test. So if you look at the key and you're like, oh, I was way off on this one, look it over, really close, super important. All right, that's, again, the key is located in the top of our Schoology file. All right, number 2 thing that you need to do is there is something called Log High School. It's a red folder in Schoology. Would you please now take your iPad out and open it to our today's folder. Today is January 5th. And there's a little red folder called Log High School. In there are 4 Schoology quizzes that you could do for practice, but I have assigned 1. One of them is actually due. It's actually going to count as a formative. And that's the senior one. Okay? So I'd actually like, since there's no time limit on it, and you can resume it if you want to, I'd like you to open it right now, and we will do just the first problem of it. I always feel like that breaks the ice, helps you to see, okay, yeah, that's right, I got to do that. Okay, so please open that right now, and we'll do a little bit of it. But then there's a third thing. In the same folder for today, there is a Dropbox that says review problems, and that is very generic because I want you to Dropbox in there whatever you have done to review. I gave you this giant review folder. It had many different worksheets and keys and all kinds of things in it that you could have done. And don't think, well, I did this worksheet. I only gave you that after break. Okay, I'm asking about what did you do to review for this test? Since we started reviewing for this test in like December 19th, long time ago. Did you ever do anything? Some of you didn't, which means you'll not have nothing to put in there, which means it gets a 0 on that part of your grade. Okay, so if you never did anything until I handed out the worksheet, first of all, shame on you. But second of all, you can find something right now, and there's many things in this folder, literally, well, there's at least 10 things in the folder. Find something that you could do and get it done in Dropbox, the digital thing. Don't Dropbox a picture of this worksheet. That's going to be handed in. That's the first thing that's separately, and I'm taking that by hand. Log High School's senior level quiz is a Schoology quiz. You can't hand that in either. This is the Dropbox. And that Dropbox, you're going to not put this worksheet. You're going to put in something that you've done to review besides the worksheet. Okay? All right. So there is if you want a specific, like, just tell me what to do, okay, then look in Schoology. Here, I'll find it for you. There's a good one in there that you could do, and I know some kids already did this. Just trying to give you an option. It's called Extra Practice Chapter 8 Check-In. The Extra Practice Chapter 8 Check-In would be a good thing you could do and put in the Dropbox. Okay, any questions about what I've asked you to do to be ready for the test tomorrow? 3 things: the worksheet, senior level, log high school quiz, which we're going to start right now, and Dropbox, one other thing, which could be that thing called check-in. All right, then let's proceed to that senior level Schoology quiz. Owen, would you read me problem 1?
Change exponent form to log form.
Okay.
It's going to be
1/2
power of x
equals 4. Okay, so if I'm going to rewrite this, that's another way to say rewrite. Mariam, can you do the rewrite for us? Which is the base, the 1/2 or the 4? The 1/2. Log base 1/2, and then do the circle of logs. This isn't power, but yes, log base 1/2 of 4. So just in case you forgot the words, that's base, and this is of. So log base 1/2 of 4, finish it, equals x. And that is one of the choices. It's multiple choice, and you're done, because it only wanted to rewrite. Could I expect you to actually simplify something like that? Yes. I'm going to clarify right here. Would you please, everybody, take a second and try to figure out what's the answer to that? Don't say it out loud. Think it through. Hint, try to make the bases the same. Once you make the bases the same, the answer will be the exponent. So you're going to make that into a 1/2. Raise your hand if you've got it. Ooh, your exponents are weak. I'm going to pause for a second and give you some time. 4 is 1/2 to the what? Think it through. Act like your life depended on it. You can do this. Your life doesn't depend on it, but your grade does. Okay. Do you get that really this is about that 2 and that 4? If I squared it, you'd be really close, wouldn't you? It'd be 1/4. And then it wouldn't be that hard to take 1/4 and get it to be a 4. -2. Raise your hand if you had that one right. Okay, good. Then this has the same basis, so the answer to that really is -2. Now, for the first question of the Schoology quiz, they're not asking for that. They're just asking for the rewrite. So we already had it in blue or right here. That was our rewrite. Okay, so that's the first question of the Schoology quiz. Finish that as part of your homework. But whenever you get done with the problems I give you, maybe you go back and work on the Schoology quiz a little more, okay? Because I'm giving you problems that, I'm not doing this to like waste your time. I'm giving you problems that you need to know, and we haven't talked about much. All right, next I'd like to delve into a word problem. All right, so let's do a gathering snow problem. Like it was building up. Did any of you guys think like, oh, it's probably done, I'll shovel the driveway and then have to go back out there? I did. So I had to do it twice. So let's say that we have a starting amount. You look outside and there's 2 inches of snow, okay? And the amount of snow is going to double every 4 hours. You didn't know that, but that's turned out to be what was going to happen. It was going to, the amount of snow on the ground was going to double every 4 hours. So then my question is, can you set up the equation for just that? I haven't told you everything. So you should be able to write me an equation. It's got a couple variables left in it, but it's got some stuff in it. I'll pause for a second. Don't use the e to the kt thing. Don't use that. I will do that later, but just to make a simpler one. Okay. Did you have y equals 2 times doubling means another 2 every 4 hours? No, that is wrong. What am I missing? You could have changed the 2 into a 1 plus 1. That would be just fine. But this is x over 4. If it doubles every 4 hours, you got to put the over 4 here. Okay. What's similar to doubling except kind of the opposite? Half, so like half-life. All right. All right, so let's keep this one simple. Let's just finish this problem by saying, how long till there's 8 inches of snow out there? Don't try to just do it in your head. Put it in the equation and solve it. Since I said how long, you don't know x. How long till there's 8? Now at this point, I think most of you will have figured out that the 8 goes here, and then you divide both sides by 2, and then you get to here. You can use logs, but you don't really have to. Do you get that you could make this into having the same base as each other? What's 4 the same as? 2 squared equals 2 to the x over 4. So then you just made it down to 2 equals x over 4. X equals 8. Okay. You might be like, 8? That doesn't make any sense. Well, if you put in 8 here, 8 divided by 4 is 2 doubling cycles. Okay. Any questions about how I got that? Maybe I skipped too many steps. Here, I'll show you. 2 equals x over 4. Times by 4 on both sides. X equals 8. Okay, now let's do another one like that, except this time, would you please write down this original? A of t is equal to a sub 0 times e to the, by now you should know, kt. Good. We're going to take elements of that original problem. We're just going to say that there was 2 inches to start with. And then let's say I tell you that k is -1. Have I given you enough info to get the final amount? No. I'd need to give you the time. Say time is 3. Whatever the units of the problem is. Could be in minutes, could be in days, could be in hours. Yes, you may. What if I told you that there's no negative exponents allowed in your answers? It's true, by the way, if you didn't know that. Figure out how to get this to be simpler so that it doesn't have the negative exponent. Negative exponents are like a math problem. You're not supposed to leave a math problem in your answer. Give you one little hint. This negative 3 could be thought of as a negative 1 times 3, couldn't it? All right, pause for a second while you and your partner talk it over. Try to figure out what this should simplify to. Okay, so maybe I was overly dramatic on this, but it is true you aren't supposed to have a negative exponent, so we should fix that. What is e to the negative 1? It's 1 over e. Now, if I just replace this with 1 over e to the third, it just could be simplified a little more. You could put 1 to the third really easy. What is 1 to the third? Just 1. So 2 over e to the third. Okay, and what is that? Well, you could use a calculator if you had one, and this is about 2.718, so around about 3. So then it's about 3 to the third, which is like 27. Of course, it's a little bit more than that. No, it's a little bit less than that because it's 2.7. So it's a little less than that. So I could get, this is just a fraction. It's just a weird looking fraction. Okay, so let's move on out of word problems and into use substitutions. Really important topic. Do you get there's something complicated in here? Twice? And if I could pull out the complicated thing twice and just put in a u, then it would probably solve easier. Okay, everybody give that one a shot. Pause for a second. Give that a try. Okay, so on this one, we're going to start with let u, not lit, Mr. Server, that's different. Let u equal e to the x. Then this part is e to the x but squared. So it's u squared. And that's 4u. And then I'm going to subtract 5 from both sides, and I get that. And then it factors into u plus 5u minus 1. And how do I know that works? Because if I do the outside and the inside, I get plus 4. Okay, so then I get two answers. U equals negative 5 and u equals 1. And then I replace the u's with e to the x's. And e to the x equals 1. Now, everybody, how many of you got it that far at least? Okay, good. Oh, and do you know what to do next? So log base of
1
equals,
x.
and what's that one actually finally answered? 0, good. And this one, log base e of negative 5 equals x, and that, you need to identify it. That is the solution, but it's extraneous. So you can't just like not have that answer. You have to have it, but crossed off. Because why? Because you can't have a negative argument. Yes?
Would you lose points if you didn't write the let part, the let mean?
I'm just going to say that I'm trying to get you ready for the AP test. On the AP test, this is an approved, it's a good strategy. It's something you should use. But if you don't say let u equal e to the x, you would lose points there. Because you just magically change something into a u without saying what you did. It's like not showing your work. So, yeah, you'd have to have this. I'm not going to say what I would do. I'm going to say I would have that, and I'll have to decide if a kid forgets that, how much that's going to cost them. Yes?
Does it have to be u?
No, but it's kind of like saying, does pi have to be 3.14? Well, yeah, let's just, that'd be smart to be consistent. So a u substitution is a thing, and that means we usually use u. But in theory, you could use any letter you wanted to, but it'd be a little bit like saying, let's use a letter P for pi. Well, just confusing. Why do that? Okay, so here's the next one. Really super simple, but maybe make you think a little bit. Solve.
Is that an M?
That's an M.
What else could that be? Like, I'm like Mr. Server this time.
Okay, at least did you know is 2 to the third equals square root of m? And then 2 to the third is 8 square root of m. If I square both sides, is that legal?
Yeah.
Does it cause the absolute value thing?
No.
No, it does not. And now how could I know that 64 was the answer? Put it back in and actually put 64 here and see if it works. What's the square root of 64? And if I put an 8 here, do you get how that would actually equal 3 then? Cool. Looks like it worked. All right.
I like rewrite the
Oh, you,
square root of m as like
m to the 1/2 power.
log 2 to the m.
If you wanted to rewrite the square root of m as m to the 1/2, that would actually have been totally fine. And then you would have fixed that by squaring both sides, which would have worked.
But
I
got
think
it
I did the
right.
exact same that you did, Ajna. Yeah,
Okay.
Okay,
it's fine. We took the hard way. We're better.
Yeah.
there you go. Whatever doesn't kill you makes you stronger, right?
Tell that to someone who had a heart attack.
Straight application of that phrase program.
All right.
I
I do sometimes forget which problems I've done in which hours. I don't think I've done this problem with you yet, have I?
We did that.
Like we did that with the first one we did.
Oh, drat. Okay.
Silly
You
business.
can do it again if you want. I'm probably really good at it
Nope.
right now.
Nope. Sorry. I
Bet you I could answer
thought we hadn't done that one yet.
Poor guys.
Guys, come on.
Sadly, I'm not doing them in order, so, okay, so here's one that I know we haven't done. Y equals 5 to the x plus 1 plus 3. And they're gonna ask you for the domain and the range. And the only way you're probably gonna be able to get it is if you can sketch it. I don't need you to get an exact graph where you have to find like 3 points in the asymptote, but a quick sketch would be very smart. So at least this, do you know what 5 to the x would kind of look like? And then you just got to move it a little bit. If you've forgotten what that looks like, everybody that knows, would you please draw it in the air? What does 5 to the x look like? All right, it looks like that. In case you forgot, that's exponential growth. Some of you had that. Some of you probably would have been sitting there for a long time before you remembered. Okay, you can always make an XY chart if you want to. But now I just got to take this and move it a couple ways. And then I need to know the domain and the range. Hint, there is an asymptote. It's running right along there at 0 right now, but you'll have to move it. All right, so then figure out its domain and its range. I'm going to pause for a second. Let me try that. Okay. I just have to move it 1 to the left. And if you really think about it, it doesn't change anything. If I move this 1 to the left, it almost looks like I moved it up in a weird way. But every dot has a dot to the left of it. You know, 1 to the left of it. And the green one has been moved to the left, but the domain and range would be the exact same thing. But once I move it up 3, then that asymptote will have to come up 3. And then the final answer, which I'll make black, kind of look like that. That didn't change the domain, though. Negative inf to inf. But it did change the range. What's the lowest it goes now? Does it actually touch 3? There we go. Does that make sense to you? All right, now one more thing I want to explore with you. What if I said, yeah, the domain would have been all reals, but I'm going to give you an artificial domain that says x has to be greater than 1. We have done this before on tests where we've said, but x has got to be this. So what if I said that? Would it change your graph at all? These two were kind of just warm-ups before we got the real thing, so all I create is erase these two. So, would the graph look different if x had to be greater than 1? Yeah, because think about it. Aren't these all spots where x is less than 1? So that can't exist anymore. So those are all gone. And in fact, if it has to stay greater than 1, it can't even be 1. So let's say that that's the spot where x would have been 1. So I have an empty spot there. Do you get how the graph changed? Okay, now take a moment and find the inverse of this and its domain and range. Hint, to find the inverse of this, you swap x and y and then you solve. Might involve logs. So find the inverse of this thing. You don't have to graph it to get the domain and range though. If you really understand, this is one of the toughest ones. But if you really understand how to make an inverse and what inverses mean, you've already got the domain and range of the inverse. Okay, so what I was trying to say is that if you switch x and y around, you have just swapped the domain and the range. So now your equation would read this, and its domain and range would just be flip-flop. The domain becomes the range, and your range becomes the domain. Do you remember that about inverses? Okay. So then, is this good enough for the inverse? No, because you'd have to solve it for y. So I'm going to do that. X minus 3 equals 5 to the y plus 1. Rewrite log base 5, x minus 3, y plus 1. Subtract 1 from both sides. Be careful, that's the argument though. All right, now one last thing. On the key for problem 6, don't put your stuff away yet. I'm going to be done in just a second. They put in logs on both sides on the key here. I think that was a really confusing way to do it. What would you have done instead of putting in logs on both sides? Come on, it's the first thing you should go to. Rewrite. Log base 2 of 5 equals x plus 3. The teacher got all confused because they thought they needed to put in logs on both sides. It would work, it's just really complicated. All right, have a great day.